Hi, I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery in Indianapolis, Indiana.
And I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, located in Southgate, Kentucky.
And welcome to Wheel Talk.
Hey guys, we've loved answering all of your questions so far. If you'd like to hear your question on the podcast, please send them to us on Instagram at Wheel Talk Podcast or by email to wheeltalkpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks.
Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of Wheel Talk. We're sitting down with a new guest here today, Trevor Daugherty. What's the official handle? I'm trying to remember what it is now.
Trevor Clayworks.
Trevor Clayworks on Instagram. Becca actually met up with Trevor recently. Where did you meet up at?
The Indiana Clay Conference.
Yeah, so he does a lot of different firing methods and stuff that he has some expertise on. So we wanted to get some insights from him on some of those different aspects of his process, and then get a little bit more info about him and what he does. So, Trevor, do you want to go ahead and introduce like who you are, what you do, and what you do in clay?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Trevor Daugherty from Northern Indiana, Goshen specifically. Have a studio here at our house. I have a pair of gas kilns, one that we recently built specifically for soda firings. Have a pair of electric kilns in the studio as well. I opened my studio officially last September, middle of the pandemic, and have kind of been figuring it out ever since. It's been a interesting experience, but a good one. I think, there's plenty to say about starting a business in the middle of what we've been through, but it's been a good fit. I think as far as ceramics is concerned, it's given me a lot of space and time to kind of get to work and figure out what I want, my product line to be like, and where I want to sell. And it's been a good challenge. I've really enjoyed kind of the process of the last year.
So you said you got kind of like officially like open shop or open the studio in the pandemic. So were you making at an outside studio before that, or had you worked in clay before that much, or off and on, or?
Sure. So when I was a sophomore in high school, took my first ceramics class, and I was really fortunate to be at a small school that had a practicing potter as a teacher. So was able to take 6 semesters of ceramics in high school, which was, obviously very fortunate. Goshen has a very healthy ceramic scene. We have a number of nationally known potters here in town. So I was able to spend 2 years working for Dick Lehman in high school. Started out on Saturdays, mixing clay, mixing glazes, all that stuff. And then my senior year of high school, I was actually able to be there 4 mornings a week in replacement of going to school, which was awesome. Mentorship experience. So that was kind of my background and the foundation of getting started, and how I fell in love with it. And then college was in the mix of course load as well. I wasn't an art major, but was able to sneak in. I went to a small liberal arts school, so no security at studio, so kind of was able to have my way there after hours, and then left it alone for quite a while, and did some other things. But in 2019 we had the opportunity to buy a house and a studio on a property here in Goshen that was built by my wife and I's ceramic professor at Goshen College, and he was retiring, at least reducing his workload heavily. So everything was in place here, and it was kind of like, well, you're either going to do this now probably, or wait until retirement, is what it felt like. So it was a good opportunity to get my feet wet. And then when the pandemic happened, it was like, whoa, I really have some space and time to do this. And that's when I started making more plans to do it on a full-time basis, which started last winter, but certainly in earnest, the last 6 months, 9 months or so.
Okay. So did he leave all the did he leave some of those things there?
Yeah, so
like
he
the
left.
kilns and stuff?
He built a gas kiln, a train kiln in the 1980s, which is still here. It's pretty much on its last legs. It needs some love for sure. And we have 2 electric kilns, one of which was an Amoco one from late 90s, and then I have a more recent Scott kiln. And I also purchased a wheel from him. And a lot of his work was actually more like furniture based. He made a lot of coffee tables, planters, stuff like that. So he had a slab roller that was 12 feet long. And one of the things that he's known for is making tile backsplashes. So like in our house, all of the kitchen backsplashes, our shower, those kind of things he made on that ginormous slab roller. I have since taken that apart because it took up so much room, 12 feet long by 4 feet wide. That's precious space, when you're only needing to do slabs that are, maybe like 3 by 2, at most. So I did take that apart. Pretty much all of the, kind of infrastructure of a basic studio was here, which was a huge help.
That's great. Yeah, that house is pretty sweet, honestly. I see the photos of the house, and Becca loves it, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Becca,
we're very fortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bought a cup from me probably back in 2019.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. And then I went to see your page and I was like, what the fuck? There's an Eames chair, and then look at that art, and then the couch, and I was like, oh no. No. I feel like you're my only internet friend of mid-century stuff.
I'm happy to be that person. And my wife's an art teacher. I mean, she has the eye. She grew up in a family that had a construction company, so she definitely has the visuals for it, but I'm happy to claim it on my feed.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I want to get one of those black, I don't even know the name. That's not the Eames chair. It's some other black leather with I don't remember. Becca probably knows the name of it. What is
Highly recommend.
You were breaking up, but is it the Eames chair?
I don't know. It's the black one with the wood back. It looks awesome. I don't know. Those are awesome. So, so you do it full time now. Are you?
You're teaching.
I see your wife in there a little bit in the studio too. Do you all kind of split up roles in the studio to work on different forms as well, or is it mainly you?
Yeah, good question. My wife is currently finishing her master's degree in art education, so her involvement has been largely at shows and things like that. She's going to be done in a couple weeks here, so hopefully, her involvement will continue to pick up. She certainly has an eye for things that I don't. But it's a family thing. We've got a 3-year-old, so I'm a stay-at-home dad, as well. So she's out there with me, right on the edge of constantly destroying seemingly everything that I've made. But it's a blast. It's like this is a really cool time of life, and I'm really thankful to be able to be at home. In addition to the studio, my wife and I also publish a magazine called Edible Michiana, which you may have know other edible publications across the United States. There's one in Ohio Valley, one in Indy, that covers food and culture happenings. So that goes along really well with the studio business, and she has kind of a role there too. So we have plenty of tasks between the two of us for sure.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so you get some nice product photography, I'm sure, in there.
Correct. Yeah, and it's also a great way to meet potential customers and new businesses and all that stuff. It's one of those things that when we put it together, we were like, okay, this is a great opportunity to be seen and known, and maybe support both businesses alongside each other.
Yeah. And you mentioned Michiana. I actually just now put together that's like Michigan, Indiana. I didn't know that for some reason. Becca's probably like, you idiot. But can you
idea either.
You didn't know that? I just thought of it when he just said that, and I was like, oh, okay. Now that you said regional, I'm like, oh, okay. So the Michiana Pottery Tour, I saw you were kind of involved with that recently. Can you explain like what that is for people that don't know about that? Because I'm sure that's a pretty good thing out there for people to see.
For sure. Yeah. So the Michiana Pottery Tour has been around for 10 years. This September was, a decade's worth of every last weekend of September. Studios are open across the Michiana region. I think that Michiana is one of those things that, like, up here we're like, that's our thing, but I don't think anyone else knows what it means. But it's like all of the counties that border the Michigan and Indiana state lines on each side is kind of considered the Michiana region. So we're, like I said earlier, we're super fortunate to have a really strong ceramics community up here. Marvin Bartel, who is the studio that I bought, he came to Goshen in the 70s from Kansas and really started this kind of ceramics community. And from him, there's kind of a tree of artists who have been educated by him and worked with him and those kind of things. And we're all mostly a part of the Michiana Pottery Tour. So that's like Dick Lehman, Justin Rosshank, who's pretty well known for his political pottery. Mark Gertzen is another well-known potter in the area, and about 6 others. We have about 8 stops total. So across 2 days, everyone's studio is open, and each stop invites 3 to 8 artists from anywhere to come and be a part. So that's pretty neat. I think we're really lucky that the foundation has been laid, that people know to buy pottery in the area. So I think it's a little bit easier to convince artists from farther away to come. Like this year, like Kyle Guyman from Utah, was on the list. And we've had people from California and Minneapolis and North Carolina. So it's a really cool thing, and I think helps spreads the awareness in the community of, not only do we have great potters here, but like, here's what else you can find, without going to Amazon or going to Crate and Barrel or whatever it may be. So they've done a lot of work. This was my first year hosting, which was awesome. It was a really, special weekend for me. But even, kind of in the midst of people with varying levels of comfort, we had 550 guests across 2 days, which was awesome.
Wow.
Just at your studio.
Just at my stop. Yeah.
Wow.
Which was really cool. So, on a normal year when the weather's good, you can push past those numbers, which makes sense to have multiple artists then, because you're going to have all these people come through and people are going to be like, I don't like soda fired pottery, but I had a miniatures artist at my house this year, and she's selling stuff for dollhouses, and people are buying them in droves. I mean, it was crazy. So that's really cool to see. I mean, not only do we represent a wide range of artists regionally, but we have people, coming from all over, which is really cool.
That's pretty sweet. And what time of year is that, if people want to look out for that to
last
visit?
Weekend of September.
September. Okay.
Yep. And then
so y'all didn't have it too long ago.
We didn't. And then this is the second year where we'll have a online only holiday sale December 4th. So everybody who was a part in September will all be back with fresh work. December 4th is a Saturday. It'll be like a 1-day sale. If you go to MichianaPotteryTour.com, you can see all of the artists who will be there, and then you just go directly to everybody's shop, and do that directly.
Cool. Yeah, I like the idea of the studio tour kind of thing, because we're kind of looking. I don't know that we necessarily have one in this area, and I think there's a lot of options to do stuff like that. And it's, the Michiana and St. Croix and some of those others that are out there that do tours are really cool options for. Plus, it's like, if you're a potter, like, you can travel to just visit the tour. Like, that's pretty cool. Like, if it's within like 4 to 6 hours, like, that would be a cool like weekend,
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the neatest parts was like Saturday night, we all go to the brewery in town and talk and like, talk about the day, but also, just catch up on what everybody's doing and, what you're trying and all that stuff. And even between, slow moments in the tour, you're walking over to the other booths and chatting about, work that they have set out, which is really cool. There's a lot to learn from how everybody sets up their booths. I mean, as you guys know, like everybody does it differently and prices differently and that stuff, which is a great educational experience whether you're visiting or hosting.
Nice. Becca, did you have something? I feel like I cut you off there.
No, you're good. I'm letting you talk as much because my internet sucks. I do think that we should. Didn't we have a question about like firing though?
Yeah. So you mentioned that you do soda firing, and you said you just built that soda kiln. So can you talk about, I suppose, having the gas kiln and the soda kiln, that you fire both of those methods?
I do, and obviously soda uses same fuel method, being natural gas. I primarily use the larger train kiln for bisque firings at this point. It's just it wasn't built to specifications to be particularly efficient, so it can really be a journey getting to cone 10. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot of bisque firings in there, which is great because it's a huge kiln, so I can do a month's worth of work in there and have the soda kiln completely full and extras, for if I want to do some stuff, in my electric kilns or whatever it may be. On the flip side, when you pack it that full, you run the risk of something going wrong. And, last time around I had a shelf break, which,
yeah, I saw that shelf kind of tilted. So that was actually a bisque firing that happened.
Yeah.
In.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm not sure what happened there, but yeah, it only fell about an inch onto another cup, and actually everything was fine.
Oh, wow.
Crazy. But putting all of your eggs in one basket, as they say, like can be a little crazy. Anyways, your question was about soda firing. So I'm really into the soda scene because, one, I think it's something that's still emerging in its current state. Here in America, obviously people used to have salt fired for decades, but applying soda in its current form and adding some other dry materials to the mix, I think a lot of people are still kind of figuring out what the potential there is. And that really drew me to it. I love atmospheric firing. I love that it's inconsistent, and I love that there's some risk. Obviously, it can be a total pain in the ass sometimes, and can be really disappointing, after a full day's work of babysitting the kiln. But when it does work, it can be really special. And for me up here, there aren't really many soda-fired potters at all. Justin Rosshank, who I mentioned earlier, he does extreme low firing in the soda kiln, like 06, like super low.
Oh wow! I didn't know it was that low. I thought it was like a cone 3 or something like that.
Yeah, so he'll do like 06, 3, 5, like very low temperatures. And he wrote a book about that recently. That's helpful for firing at all temperatures. But for me personally, it was also kind of a marketing decision, firing at a high temperature and what you can do not only with traditional soda stuff like slips and different dry materials and stuff like that, but also with the glazes I already had. You can make these surfaces that are glossy and almost out of control, runny, and I love that. Probably so much to the point that I don't focus as much on my forms as I do trying to create these surfaces that people just want to have. But it's a cool thing. I mean, it's like I said, it takes a lot of patience and being prepared for disappointment. We've had this kiln since May when Ted Neal built it. Ted's a professor at Ball State of ceramics, and we fired it 6 times. I'm shooting for once a month, the last weekend of every month, just to get the feedback, to try and learn as quickly as I can. And it's been good. I mean, I've had some that I've really felt pretty solid about, and I've had some that have been quite bad. So
wow, how many pieces fit in that kiln every month?
About 100. It's
Okay,
not huge.
that's not too bad. Yeah, that's
Right.
good.
And
At least
I
it's not
found that
everything all at once, and you're like 300 pots, and you're like, oh shit.
correct. Yeah, exactly. And if you pack it too tight, then it starts to really freak out at the higher temperatures. So, uh, I've learned to try to put quality stuff in there, not jam it full, take my time, take notes, all of that stuff. But I can still manage to screw it up pretty easily for sure.
Wow. So you said the fuel is the same, so you're still using like a Venturi burner or something like that with the gas, and you ignite it and fuel it with gas, and then the only difference is when you get to the top temperatures, you add the soda, and that's the primary difference, or is there any other big difference?
Yeah, so using natural gas, Venturi burners, all of that stuff, and you can use it as a standard, reduction kiln. I mean, you don't have to apply soda every time. But yeah, at that top temperature for me, firing to cone 10, I'll start to introduce the soda materials at cone 6. Let it kind of work its way onto the pots, melt out, apply again at cone 8, and then apply again at cone 10. So I typically get 3 rounds in through the firings. I will put it into reduction pretty heavily when I spray, which is a mixture of it's often is just soda ash. But if you were to get into kind of some of the books out there like Gail Nichols, who is kind of world renowned for her soda firing, she's using whiting and baking soda. There are people who put borax into the mix. So once you add those kind of things, I mean, that's a lot of variables. Stuff can get out of control pretty quickly, but I think that's also where some of the best results happen. We mounted
out of control, as in like there's too much like melting and dripping and like.
Right. Yeah. Cleaning shelves is a standard practice. Like you're gonna have to grind shelves every time, which I've just tried to embrace as part of the process. But I mean, it was 30 degrees the other day, and I was grinding shelves. Wasn't particularly fun, outside. But it's like that's kind of the work for the reward. You're not going to find typically people who are firing, in electric kilns or whatever, these surfaces where they're running off the bottom of the pot, and it looks visually like, holy cow, that looks like that's a waterfall going straight into the table, when it's sitting there, which is what I love. And obviously diamond core bats are my best friend. I'm grinding the hell out of these things, after every firing. So there's, that other layer of work that has to be done afterwards. Yeah, when you nail it, I mean, I feel like it's pretty cool.
Cool. Are there other raw materials that can be added to, like, at the soda stage? You said the borax and stuff. Like, do people add colorants or anything like that? Or is it more about the soda has certain chemical properties that produce certain results that others can't withstand?
Yeah, so as far as I know, and I mean, there's obviously people who know better than me, applying colorants is typically done with soda, like intentional slips that are added prior. So,
right. Okay, like flashing slips and stuff like that.
Right, exactly. So, I mentioned Gail Nichols earlier. She has this incredible recipe book, and she's got a base, flashing slip. And then if you add, a couple percents of copper, you're going to get that, either flash of red or flash of green or, iron or whatever it may be. I don't know if you were to spray it in, what the effect would be. You'd probably have to let it melt out.
Yeah, it's probably pretty expensive too. Those colorants aren't cheap.
Exactly.
So
yeah, to make a dip.
Just spread it on a slip. Yeah.
There's a lot of people so salt firing, way back when was taking either a piece of wood or angle iron and putting salt on the angle iron and dumping it into the kiln and letting the blowers, do the job of spreading it throughout. I am spraying mine, the liquid that I make. I'm spraying it with a gun from a company called Guard Air, and it attaches to my air compressor. So, I mean, it just like, I mean, it's wild. I've almost thought sometimes, am I going to knock a pot off of the wadding? Like, you
Yeah.
kind of got to like gauge that distance and how much
It's like
you're.
a pressure washer, like you're
It
spraying
is.
stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But because it's kind of coming in so wide and with a bit of force, you really get that spread out throughout the kiln, and you're not depending on, hopefully the blowers pick it up and toss it
Okay.
wherever. When I'm loading the kiln, if I know there's a pot that I'm like, man, I really want that covered, I'm gonna put it by the spy hole, and then I'm just gonna blast it, during the
Mm-hmm.
firing. And that part's
Okay.
fun. I mean, you're like kind of playing duck hunt, with a kiln. Like, you open the spy hole and you see your pot in there, and you just point the gun at it and it goes to work. And
Okay.
sometimes that can be pretty wild, and sometimes it can be pretty bad. But yeah, when it works out, it's awesome.
Yeah, because I was kind of comparing it to wood firing, where you have big open spaces where you got to like stoke the side and stoke, like, obviously the big opening where you feed all the wood with the heavy
Right.
wood pieces, and then you got the side stoking, and that's where you would probably do like the spraying and stuff, I would imagine. But
Right.
with a gas, it's a lot smaller areas. I guess you have like bricks and stuff that you pull out and you peep into, and
Hmm.
it's like a 3x3 brick or something like that you can
Right.
get the hose into. Okay.
And one of the
Cool.
things that the kiln is very interesting. It's a design that's been built a couple of times, but it is just super reactive to anything that's adjusted. So if I change the gas, I mean, almost right away you can see, on the thermocouple display, it's going up, it's going down. And there's enough variables that sometimes, like, if you mess with it too much, you'll forget what you did, and you have to just start over, basically, at that
Hmm.
temperature and try to get it figured back out. So what I've been doing at higher temperatures lately, because I like to reduce while I'm spraying, is I've been putting in 1 by 1 pieces of wood just beneath the venturi burner. So I'm sliding them in the back, and it just creates a total smoke show in there. And then I'm spraying, but that allows me to not touch any of the fuel or the burners or any of that stuff and mess something up along the way. So
Hmm.
that's been a good fit. I do think that it makes the colors a little better, but you're not applying enough wood to get any kind of ash buildup or anything like that. It's strictly
Yeah.
for the function of putting it into reduction.
Okay. How do you know, like, with so many different
Wait,
variables? Go ahead.
wait. I think you should explain what reduction is for people that don't know.
Sure. So generally, most firings are done either in oxidation, which is typically thought of as an electric kiln, although more people are using gas kilns in oxidation. And then firing in reduction, which is where there's more fuel than oxygen. That's typically in a gas kiln, and electric kiln would be the opposite of that, more oxygen than fuel, but you're using electricity, so there's not really any fuel there. But yeah, that was a really
Reduction
clumsy
is
explanation.
no, it's okay. So reduction is an extremely like fluid way of firing. So it could change at any point and any time. Like it's not going to be the same every single time you fire, potentially, unless you have like a blow. But
Right.
but if you're firing in oxidation, you're usually pretty set with your results. So that's a lot. There's a lot of airflow in reduction, whereas there's no airflow in an electric kiln pretty much at all. So
Yeah, and that's, you can look at that two ways. Like, sometimes it really sucks. I mean, I've had some orders that didn't pan out because I wasn't quite dialed in on what I was doing, or my kilns have enough room for air. I still need to follow the firing log. I mean, I can't do it by feel at this point. Um, but the flip side of that being, if you get yourself a plan of how you're going to fire and you don't like the results, then you can start to say, hey, I can do this a little bit with the gas, I can do this a little bit with the oxygen throughout. Whereas, firing an electric kiln, obviously you're kind of limited to the schedule that you use. So that's one of the benefits, although I think there's plenty of people who would say it's a negative too.
Yeah. Because the only what is the actual like dial on the burner? Is it a knob that actually has like a setting, or is it like one of those like kind of levers that's like open close and you like just move it?
Yeah, so there's on the burner is an all-encompassing fuel and blower. It all comes together. So there's three places to make adjustments. There's that, that typical like quarter turn on off for the fuel, which is attached to a gauge. So you can measure, how many pounds per whatever it is on the gauge and get, figure out how much fuel you're putting in. And then the blower, which is the fan, you can adjust from low to high. And it's a full dial, 360 degrees. And then there's also a metal piece that sits on top of the fan that adjusts the oxygen intake. So you can be blowing, the flame in without a lot of oxygen.
Because the metal piece is like on the back side of the fan to say like how much air is going to come from the backside through the fan and in. Okay.
Yeah. So you could be blowing the flame in with no oxygen at all, which is going to be, a highly reduced environment inside the kiln. So that level of adjustment is really cool. But again, like if you go messing with two or three things at once, you're going to forget how you got there pretty quickly.
Does taking the peeps and stuff out, does that introduce oxygen differently than it would? Is that like a variable, or is that, I know the damper is a factor as well.
Right. Yep. You got the damper too. The thing with when you take out the spy bricks, you can see that the temperature will fluctuate because, depending if you take out the top one or the bottom one, I mean, you're still dealing with the laws of physics, like within the kiln of or maybe not the laws of physics, whatever, heat. Obviously at the top, it's going to be a different temperature than the bottom. And that will still affect it if you're introducing oxygen from other sources than just in the back.
Yeah. Can you explain the damper and what the damper is meant to do?
So the damper is in my case, it's an actual kiln shelf that sits in the chimney, and as you push it in and out, that affects the draw of the flame out of the kiln. So both of my kilns are downdraft, which means that the flames come in the back from the burners and they cycle up through the top of the kiln, and then they go out through the bottom of the kiln. Okay. So the flames kind of make a full path. I know there are some people who can see this on video, but I know most won't. But coming in the sides up to the top, across the roof of the kiln, and then back down, and then out the bottom.
Okay. In the middle.
Yep. So the damper affects that level of pull. So when it's wide open, I mean that flame is moving pretty quickly through and out the chimney. And at temperature, I can get a rooster tail out the top of the chimney 3 feet.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. The tree above there has been dealt with.
Okay. Nice. So the gas and the flame gets directed upward because there's walls immediately when you get inside the kiln that keep the flame from just going underneath the shelves and stuff, right?
Correct. Yeah. So there's two channels, one on each side of the kiln, with fire brick about stacked 3 high, and then what would be the front of the kiln where the flame would run into, as it comes in. Then there's a brick that's sitting on an angle, and that literally kicks it straight up in the air, the flame. When it hits that brick, it goes up the wall, and that's how it gets up to the top, and then it gets pulled back down.
Okay. So just from that damper being adjusted a little bit, like that lets that oxygen like pull, like say, hey, flame, come my way. This is where you got to go to get out of there because you got to get away from the fuel. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of, science to it. I wasn't very good at science, which is maybe why some of these firings don't work out very well.
Neither was I.
See, I did some gas firings and I've done some raku firings. We actually had to learn how to raku fire as part of a college course that we did. Or it was like primitive firings or something like that. So we had the one Venturi burner, and we did I kind of remember the whole like open the thing, like open the knob like a little bit when you start, and then like gradually open it and change the blower fan and stuff like that. So it's a little more powerful for the gas firing because you're going a lot hotter. But
Right. Yeah. And taking notes I think is a good thing. You could get there without notes. But like I fired on Saturday and it was raining, and just the difference in humidity made it difficult at 2100, 2200 degrees trying to get up, to where I wanted to be. So there's just so many variables. It's like anything you can have, in your back pocket to help you get there is just a good thing.
Nice. Have you done like wood firing too, or have you done salt firing as well? Or
Yeah, so I was really lucky in high school. We had a wood kiln in high school that I fired a couple times. We had one in college. But now, back to Justin Roshank, he has a very large Anagama kiln on his property, which we're actually firing a week from today. It's November 1st. I'm not sure when. I guess this will come out. But November 8th, that week, we're going to fire it for 5 days. And it's big enough that, really no potter can fill it by themselves. And no potter wants to be working around the clock 24 hours stoking wood, in November. So that's another really cool part of our community. I think there's probably 8 of us who are going to split the shifts 6 hours at a time, for that week. So it works out well for Justin. He gets to fire the kiln and he doesn't have to watch it all the time. And it works out well for us. We trade a portion of our work week for space in the kiln, and then I have access to another part of inventory for me to sell this holiday season that I wouldn't otherwise have.
Yeah, that's a great option.
Yeah.
Becca, have you ever done a wood firing? I don't think so, but
I'm like one of those potter. I'm like a one-hit wonder potter. I know a lot about electrical firing and like all the components of that. And I know a little bit about all the other stuff, but I also could care less. Like I appreciate wood firing, but I don't want to do it. I have no interest.
And there's like a part of it that, we were talking about low fired, soda kilns earlier. Like there's a part of it that some of this stuff is really bad for the environment. And recognizing like, not only obviously are we putting fuel into the air, but when I'm pumping the kiln full of soda and it's flying out the top of the chimney, I'm kind of like, well, like that probably doesn't look great to my neighbors, which is why, people are exploring this at a lower temperature. It takes less of your day. It takes less energy, less material. It's more obviously efficient from a energy perspective, but also financially. So, I don't know if the future holds me going to cone 10 forever. There's certain things you can do at cone 10, obviously, that you can't at a lower temperature, but it's hard to deny the benefits of dropping the temp a couple hundred degrees.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, and it's hard to, if you buy a house with a kiln already on the property, it's hard to not go to cone 10. It's
Right.
like, if you got it, do it, right? But a lot of people can't afford a cone. Yeah, like you said, like a lot of people can't afford a cone 10 kiln or a wood kiln, or don't have a community around them that would supply them that, opportunity. And I think that I have had all of that. I'm just not interested. Like I've never done, people are gonna stop listening to me after this. I've never done a raku firing. I've never done a wood firing. I've done a charcoal firing. And I've never done a soda firing. So the
what's
only
a charcoal
weird
one? Is charcoal like a barrel firing, or like you did it in a wood pit?
No, it's in a regular kiln. Like it's a wood firing, but it's with charcoal instead of wood.
Oh,
But
I don't
it's
know that
small.
I've done that. Okay,
Great for barbecue as well.
So, and it was such a long time ago. It was such a long I probably couldn't tell you how to do any of it. Like, it's just, it's like, I don't know. And yeah, I think that just stems from my like lack of passion within pottery. Like, I like it, but it's not my passion, And I think that's like that's like where it shows the most.
It's also the aesthetic a little bit too. I think you appreciate the clean lines and the like that kind of aesthetic more so than the, not reproducible, the kind of organic that
don't
comes
get me
with
wrong.
like the firing.
I fucking love a good fucking like wood fired pot. Like, fuck yeah. Like, and I love a good Shino too. So like, don't get me wrong. Those are some of my favorite glazes. And I was bummed because when I was in Larry's studio, we only did cone 10. And like, he fired the kiln, but it was all cone 10. And cone 10 glazes are great.
Cone 10 electric or cone 10 gas?
Gas. And I was so bummed to go down to cone 6 electric. But then I made it work.
Yeah, but then like I see the stuff that you're posting on your Instagram this week, Becca, and I'm like, I'm over here rubbing two sticks together, trying to make a caveman fire, and Becca's got like these elite colors and lines, and I'm like, Jesus, like, what am I doing? Everyone's jealous of everyone, I think. At least
that's true. I agree. Everyone is jealous of everyone.
But I think mostly in a healthy way. I mean, or at least but it's just like, I love what both of you do. I mean, and not to make this like mutual admiration here, but like I do. I admire what both of you do in electric kiln because it makes me think about doing something different, and that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing about pottery and finding different people and having different people in your like community, your like creative community. It's like we know very few people. Well, I'm sure he knows more, but I know very few people that have electric or have gas kilns and have soda kilns and stuff like that. So I think it's always interesting, like looking at your stories and watching you like spraying and stuff like that. And you're really good at showing the process. And so, yeah, I think it's freaking dope. It's fun. It's fun to watch. And it's like, it's a good jealousy. It's like, oh, I love that. Maybe someday I want to do that. Like like maybe, obviously I'm going to come up and see your house sometime because I have to I have to sit in the chair. In the chair.
Podcast.
And we have to make pizza.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's talk about the pizza oven.
Yeah, do you have a wood-fired pizza oven?
We do, yeah. It's awesome. It's like also scratches that itch of reduction firing in a much less intrusive way. But yeah, we'll crank out some wood-fired pizzas. That's what Isaac Shue was here a couple months ago, and he was doing out in the rain. It was raining, but it was like, we got to do pizzas. Got to.
Love it. That's the thing about the atmospheric firings and the community part of it. Like, that was probably some of my favorite parts of doing it in college was the wood firing, because you really get a true sense of like what it takes to get that thing off the ground and like get it done. And you said like 5 days. I mean, so I think we did like 3 days maybe in our wood kiln, but all the wood prep, the stacking, the prepping the shelves, the cleaning the shelves, the wadding, the glazing, the loading, like there's so many things that go into it, and it's definitely a community.
And I was out there, getting ready for the wood firing on Sunday, and it's like, how many stacks of wood, next to the kiln. It's like incredible. I mean, we do that twice a year, and it's hard to imagine doing it much more than that. I mean, 3 is probably doable, but geez, it's just a lot of physical energy.
How many cords of wood is it?
I don't know. I want to say it's 8, but like that may be completely wrong. Don't quote me on that one, but I mean it's a lot of wood. It's certainly more than I burn in the winter.
What was that?
Yeah.
What was that increment you said? You said cords of wood?
Cords.
What's considered a cord? What is that?
Like CORD. It's like the back of a truck. Like the back of a pickup truck is about a cord of wood.
It's like, I don't know.
Right?
See, again, I'm going to say a number that's completely wrong, but let's say that it's 12 by 12 by 12 is like the dimensions of a cord of wood stacked.
Whoa. It's 8 of those?
Well, I mean,
about
again, I
I'm
don't know
looking it
what
up.
I
to
don't know what
fire
a
a kiln?
cord. Yeah, please look it up and let me know. But
Wow.
Okay. Well, okay, this is not helpful at all, but it's almost 1,000 U.S. liquid gallons.
What the hell does that mean?
right,
But also, you can expect to pay between 120 to 180 for a cord of wood. The quantity of a cord of wood. 4 feet. Okay, a cord is a neatly stacked pile of wood measuring 4 feet by 8 feet, with each piece of wood 4 feet in length. A face cord has the same general measurements, but the depth of the pile, blah 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 blah
Four
blah blah
by
blah.
eight. 4 by 8 like rectangle, and it's 4 feet deep of
4 feet
pieces.
deep.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's a lot of wood.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like a heaping truck. That's how I've always measured a cord of wood, because whenever we'd get a cord delivered, it was in like the back of a big pickup, like a big pickup truck, and then they just dump it, and then you have to stack it, and it's annoying as all hell.
Oh my gosh.
Right. It's a lot of work, no doubt.
Yeah.
Wow.
So 8 cords of wood.
Again, that's what I recall. Now I want to try and find
Yeah.
the post where I saw that.
Yeah.
But
We won't quote you.
Yeah,
I
you
think
don't.
this whole thing is a quote. So.
You gotta respect the people that fire their work that way, just for the sake of the prep that goes into it, and just that unknown that like, and then the skill that goes into the firing of like the variables that go into it. Oh my gosh.
Yep. Exactly.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
So okay, tell me why, because I don't actually know this. Tell me, why do you fire for 5 days in like a wood kiln?
Yeah, so I mean, just the level of ash buildup, over 5 days is wild.
Okay.
Anytime you fire in a wood kiln, you don't have to, glaze your pots, but over the course of a day, I mean, it's pretty light. You might get some, some buildup, but you're not going to get a lot of color. Over 5 days, you'll get one side that looks like a flame. I mean, it's just bright oranges and yellows. The back side is this beautiful smoky, gray, and that's just all from seriously like 100 plus hours of the flame just hitting it in the exact same way. It's pretty wild. I mean, it's and when it goes bad, it's obviously super frustrating.
Oh my God, I've seen a video of the somebody. This is a good learning experience. Somebody was in the wood kiln and they stacked their stilts not together. They like straddled them. They staggered them. That's they staggered them, and it fucking fell. Like the whole fucking kiln fell down, basically, because it was like towards the bottom, and it was just like all these shelves angled down. And I was like, oh my God. So even in an electric kiln, you should be stacking all your posts up and down in a line, And ironically, I found that out from a student. I'd always done it, but but it was like, she was like, oh, well, you're supposed to stack them, because I was going to teach her how to load a kiln. And she's like, you're supposed to stack them straight. And I was like, sure. Yeah, that sounds great.
Wait, she was asking you for confirmation, and you were like, that sounds good.
That sounds great. Well, because it's not like mandatory in an electric kiln, but it's definitely
good for your shelf life.
Yeah, when you're talking about firing, 100 times over the course of a shelf life.
Yeah, for sure. That's crazy.
So with that soda firing that you said you introduced at 6, 8, 10, is that just a matter of like, can you actually see the layering? Like, is there layering of soda and like certain sides of it get it at like cone 6 and then cone 8, and you're just trying to encompass the whole thing by introducing it those different temperatures, or is it like, how does that working that you do it 3 times?
One of the things that we do is we'll make these rings of clay, and I will put them on a shelf near the cone pack. And after each spray, I will use we have this long piece of wrought iron, and I will reach in and take one of the rings out and put it in water. And then when it cools, I can pick it up and see how much soda coverage there is on the pots. which is pretty awesome. So like, that first round, there's hardly anything on there, but by that third, fourth spraying, when you take one out, you get those glossy greens and this buildup, and you can kind of see, what's going on in there. It at least gives you a ballpark of have you covered your pieces or not.
Whoa. That's so cool. It makes me want to get into that kind of firing again.
So like,
well, actually, I don't think I've ever
to...
done soda, but I might have done soda like once, I think, in high school. We visited a studio in Indiana somewhere. And I think that was one of the only times I did it, and we did wood a few times, but that's wild. Wow.
Yeah, it's cool. And the
Brian's
next
like a
kiln,
kid
you
in
get
a
like
candy
this.
store.
You get this buildup of these rings from like, all your firings. So you get like, you can make necklaces or whatever.
I feel like I saw somebody it sounds funny. Somebody was selling their like soda fired cone packs or their wood fired cone packs. I was like, what? I don't know if they sold, but it's kind of funny that
if somebody will buy
their cone packs.
That's half
like,
about it.
Jeez. So, let's see. I wanted to ask about something else. Let's see. So, are you willing to talk about the production pottery that you produce as well? Do you still produce mugs for Justin?
Periodically, yeah. I mean, so obviously he does political pottery, is kind of what he's really known for. So last year was obviously prime for that. Anytime you're in an election year, that those are going to move. So the first half of this year was when I did the majority of that. And that will probably, I think, happen again next year. He tries to get this huge mass of bisque mugs built up, in his studio, and then he can just, go through them as he needs to. But that was something that, he asked me to start doing at the end of last year. I started doing it in January, and immediately like exposed many of the weaknesses that I needed to improve on. And Justin's style is fairly loose by nature. There are other obviously lines of quote unquote handmade pottery that are pretty, dialed in. But Justin allows for that room. And that's also because at times there's 3 or 4 of us making pots for him. So, they're not all going to be the same, obviously. But that was a great experience that I was super thankful for, and just gave me that repetition of creating 100 mugs every week. I mean, that needed to be fairly dialed in. He uses earthenware clay, which was new to me, which is, much more like throwing kind of raw mud as opposed to something that's a little more refined. So that has its own challenges. It's super wet, super soft. Which I didn't really know initially. So it's like, I'm trying to add a, design aspect and just blowing right through the side of the wall, the pot. But it really just gave me an appreciation for repetition, which, I mean, obviously Becca's been a great example of that. Like what I watch your stories, Becca, and it's like you're blowing through all these pots, in a row. And it's like, okay, those are skills that I need to build. But when you're starting out, it's really hard to throw 300, 400, 500 mugs and have them sitting around. That can be pretty demoralizing. So having especially in a pandemic where there's not a lot of opportunity, Justin giving me that chance to do that production stuff really put me on, I think, exponential growth of skills, and getting the tools that I needed, whether it's a gauge or whatever it may be, to really dial that stuff in. I feel like my skills have grown, quite a bit this year, and it's a large part to him giving me the space to do that at the beginning of the year. I mean, I handed over some pretty shitty pots, I think, initially, and he was just patient, and you don't always get that, and I'm really thankful for the opportunity, because he could have said, after the first batch, only 20 of these work, bud, this isn't gonna be an option. But he kind of nurtured me along, and that really helped.
Yeah. I feel like even since January, my skill has exponentially increase just with the doing production more full time than I was. Like I threw a bowl today that was like a big ass bowl, and it took me like 4 minutes, and I like stepped back from it, and I was like, damn, like, and it was, I don't know, it's just when you do things over and over and you start to do like more of certain shapes and stuff, it does become a lot easier and just more just life, it's just what you do. So did that kind of help start out like the whole decision of doing it full time, or were you doing it full time before that?
Yeah, so good question. In January of this year, I left what was my full-time job to make this transition to life in the studio, and then also, doing Edible Michiana, the magazine that I referenced earlier. So previously, for almost a decade, I worked for an online publication called 9 to 5 Mac, which covered everything in the Apple space, kind of the leader in that news cycle. So, a new iPhone comes out, we would review it or whatever. And I was spending, 10, 12 hours a day at a computer doing that. That was kind of the nature of the job. I had to be on, 6 a.m. and I would work until, dinner time or after that. So we had bought the studio, but it wasn't quite clear how that was all going to come together. But, at that point we were, 9-10 months into the pandemic, and it became clear, like, these kind of my work life isn't particularly healthy for me, mentally or just sitting at a desk that long. So that kind of pushed along this decision to move into the studio. So yeah, that was a big choice for our family for sure, and changed a lot of things. But my mental health, my happiness is so much better.
And was that work that you were doing, was that I'm assuming that was a remote, and you were available to do that remotely all those years that you were doing it, or you would go visit every now and then? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So we had a team of, by the time I left, I think 40 people or so. So 9 to 5 Mac has, 6 sites now that cover Apple products, Google, everything that Google does, electric vehicles, drones, and then they have a deal site, which was where I was, spending a lot of my time. So yeah, I was fully remote, which I think in a lot of ways, prepared me for both the pandemic and kind of life after. I've not been in an office ever. So, it's pretty hard for me to think about being, working with other people anyways. But the way that job was set up, I was essentially an independent contractor. So I've been doing bookkeeping for a long time for myself. I had an LLC, all of those kind of things. I was paying estimated taxes. So there was, although my skills in the studio needed some time, I felt like I had a lot of the other skills already in place. I was familiar with, some months are going to be good, some months aren't going to be as good. And what does that mean for saving, so that every month is the same financially and all that kind of stuff. I felt like I had that foundation. So that made making the jump easier. Although it certainly has had its moments over the last year of being hard. But it has shaped a lot of my approach to, getting out there. I know you guys have talked a lot about pricing your pottery appropriately for where you live. And I'm selling all of my mugs for $20 in person at this point, because I don't want to spend January, February, and March looking at finished pots on, my shelves in the studio. Like I want that. I want the desire to make more, but I also need to make more. I need that repetition, to improve. So that's been a big part of my approach, $20 in person, $25 online. And it's also helped me get a lot of product into people's hands, which has been great. And then the other thing is that I have just spent a lot of time trying to find opportunity with businesses, has been really good for me. So that's been restaurants primarily. There's a handful of restaurants kind of in our area, where I have tableware now, which obviously, making plates isn't always particularly lucrative or fun. But it also allowed me an opportunity to get in front of people. And when you go to those restaurants, maybe you're eating a meal on a handmade plate and you're like, oh, this is different. Maybe for bad reasons, but hopefully it's, maybe they ask and, gets me out there in that way. But also I've found, particularly in the pandemic, when I go to a show, I think that there's been a lot of potters who have been trying to increase their bottom line because they've not been out as much. So, you've kind of seen some prices creep up, I think, for people who haven't been willing to go to shows. And then I'm coming with $20 soda fired mugs that are completely different, than what anybody else is offering. So, that's been really good for me. I need to charge more eventually, of course, as we all, feel that from time to time. But in this moment of life, it's like, well, either get them out there or they're going to sit on the shelf, and I need to keep making to build my skills. Now I'm going to have a huge backload of mugs, and that's not going to do me any good, both from an encouragement standpoint or, just moving the business along.
Yeah. Some pieces, it's nice to just get them out of the studio too. It's
Exactly.
like, I'm willing to part ways with it at this price.
Right. And again, stole this from you, Ryan, doing mystery boxes. I mean, it's just been.
I stole that from Becca, so
There you go.
the steals all around.
So Becca, I mean, there you go. Like, I'm charging $50 and shipping on those for Etsy, and it's like, Ryan, do you prepackage those before, like?
I did not. This year I started prepackaging some just because I did want that randomness. I do have a couple still sitting over here that are prepackaged, but yeah, so, when I got around this time, I probably prepackaged about 20 of them.
Sure.
Mystery boxes.
So that's been good, both from the perspective of getting my Etsy numbers up, both in terms of sales and reviews. But I've sold a ton of those, and I've been honest in the description. This is early work. This is, something I maybe consider a second, whatever it may be. But I've really pushed them as like the ultimate gift for obviously holidays. But like, if someone who's moving into an apartment for the first time, like, this is a great gift for them. Hook them up with, I'll get you 2 mugs and, whatever. But it also lets me get stuff out and gives me more space, to make more, which I need to do.
Yeah.
They're so fun. They're just fun for everybody involved. I feel like it's like you're excited to get rid of the stuff. You also are excited to like put things together, and then they get it and they're excited to have them. It's all good.
Have you had feedback about people who have not been excited? Have you had any of those?
Probably not Becca, because she packs them to the brim, and she's like gives you so much that like she gave you like double what you paid for it. So it's like, hey, if you have any complaints, like get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I've had a few, but it's kind of like, I try to be super explicit in the description. Like, this is my call.
Yeah.
From a value perspective, it's good.
I've had some, but it was mostly on me when I was not good at packing stuff last year, and I was using bubble wrap, and we talked about that on the podcast. Like, don't use big bubble wrap because it expands and contracts. So like, I learned that, broke some pots. You hopefully have enough pots to send replacements, and you have to, absolve or whatever. You got to incur the cost of the shipping it. So shipping that extra and then shipping, I mean, it's not too bad because you're getting rid of another piece, but you do have to take on that cost and then deal with the customer service side of it. But it's not, I feel like it was a good experience. It's kind of like you jump into something too quickly and you kind of realize that you weren't exactly ready for it or you didn't plan accordingly, but you kind of do the best you can and learn from it. So, packing stuff better now, and I use the Rand pack for most stuff now, so that helps, and not overpacking. And
are you buying the box or do you have the machine?
I just have this. I have this 750 yard version of it.
Yeah.
So I like pull it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Rand pack. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I've been using. Nice. Yeah, it's certainly better than bubble wrap.
Yeah, the bubble wrap takes up a lot of volume in the studio and the storage and all that stuff. So, I mean, I try to use what I can, reuse what I can, but yeah.
The only time I use bubble wrap is when it's free.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys have talked
for like the spoon rest and stuff. Like if I have a spoon rest and I got the bubble sleeve, like I'll fold it over and like it's good for just one spoon rest. It's not a big deal.
Maybe you guys have talked about this. Sorry if you have, but Ryan, like on your Etsy shop, are you doing the Etsy marketing at all, or have you stayed away from that?
I'm not. I've done the Etsy ads a couple of times.
Yeah.
I really just threw a few bucks here and there, but it's not something that I actively do. I mean, they do the offsite ads for me because I sold more than $10,000 in the last year, so
yeah,
they force it, which is not bad. I mean, I get shot glass sales from it. Right. It's minuscule. I don't really go in there and look at the details too heavily, but I mean, it's like monthly. It's probably like $3 or $4 in like marketing because it groups the offsite ads as marketing. So it's like $4 a month. It's not enough to really sneeze at.
Yeah. That's one of the things I've been doing, as show schedule has been a little hit or miss in the last year. But mystery boxes are my most popular thing on Etsy ads, which is super interesting. But also.
So are you only doing the ads on those specific listings because they're popular?
At this point, I've done Etsy ads. So when did they start that? Maybe in April?
The offsite ads?
No, the one where you're paying for the.
Oh, I mean, they've had Etsy ads for a while, and you could pick specific listings that would like fall under the bucket of like what they would advertise for you for what you're paying for. Sure. Really, it's just like you're paying for clicks or whatever, and you say like I want to throw $1 a day, and then you choose like these 5 listings are up for grabs to be advertised for.
So I've been doing $3 to $5 a day, and I haven't lost money. But I've also been trying to figure out like what's the benefit of getting favorites on your store, getting those kind of things. And if it's just breaking even right now, like I'm okay with that. But in the long term, I'm not sure that I'll keep doing them. But boy, I sold a lot of mystery boxes on the ads. Just fun.
That's good. I might now that you say that, I might actually do that. I mean, I've
not sold any mystery boxes on ads, Ryan.
Wait, you haven't? No. Competing for mystery box sales. Yeah, I might do it on some of my, like the shot glasses always do well. I probably get 4 to 5 orders of shot glasses a week, but I still have like 20 mystery boxes, and I'm like, I want to get rid of these. But once that lull is over of like the excitement of buying it, you might like I sold maybe you sell like 20 or 30, and then it's like, oh, and it tails off, and then nobody knows it, and then I'm like, do I take them down until it's closer to the holiday season?
Have you ever brought them to shows?
No, I have not. Just because it's like, I don't want to bring a bunch of boxes, but I mean, it might be interesting though.
It could be interesting, or someone opens it immediately and they are displeased with what they got.
Yeah, and then they're like, can I get that instead? Can I get that instead?
Right, which sounds terrible, and I could see happening.
And I don't want to like bring bins of like work and say, all right, pick 3 things. You can pick 3 things, and it has to be 1 thing out of this bin and 2 out of this bin or something. It's like, I don't know.
I think
that's an interesting idea though.
Yeah.
As long as it's not like an overwhelming show that I have a lot of stuff and it's like the boxes, like I have 15 boxes, but that might be something. Maybe I'll do that with one of these shows coming up. Maybe I'll just box 10 of them and not pack them like I would ship them, but like mystery box and say, all right, there's 10 here. They're $50 a piece. Grab your box.
Yep.
You can make them open it when they leave.
Yeah. You cannot open it here.
I'm sure that won't scare anybody off.
That's a good option, though. I might do that. That's a great option. All right. Sorry. So you say you sell online, you sell at shows. Do you have a preference between the two? Or are there other ways that you sell too? You said restaurants too, so.
Yeah, I love production orders. I mean, those are like for me, that's my favorite because I love sitting down and making a bulk order. Because that's what I did when I worked at that studio in high school. By the end I was getting that experience. I was making bowls and doing that kind of stuff. Um, so I find a lot of joy in that, and it's also like guaranteed income. You know, um, in terms of online or at a show, I'm pretty introverted by nature. I mean, like I said, I've been at home working for forever. So, those have been muscles that I've like had to, flex and kind of grow into. Thankfully, my wife is very extroverted, willing to, she's a better salesperson than I am. Shows have been fun and they've been surprisingly good. I mean, I really wasn't sure what to expect this summer. Uh, I think I like online better, but it's been harder to get started. Just to
Yeah.
be honest. I think I've just about to pass 200 orders on Etsy, and about whatever 300 some items that may equate to. Uh, but yeah, it's felt like a lot of work. I mean, it's I'm sure as you guys know, like it feels sometimes like you're begging on Instagram,
Yeah.
for a mug to go. But also one of the things that I have been willing to do, and this may be silly in the long run, is I'll do local deliveries. Um,
I used to do local deliveries all the time.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I live in a town of 30,000, so it's fairly manageable. But if you're local, I've got a code you put in on Etsy, and it eliminates shipping and kind of filters it through some back end stuff I have going. But I love that because it's an opportunity if they're there to meet them, and obviously like we live in a prime delivery world, so I can typically get those to people next day at the latest, and sometimes
Wow.
same day. And again, that's benefit of kind of my situation and where I live and all of that. But yeah, I found that I got a lot of repeating customers from that.
Wow.
Because they know me and it's an opportunity to be in front of them, and if I'm not going to see them, I always write a handwritten note attached to it, and just try to make it a little bit more personable. But I've gotten people out of jams, they're going to Father's Day and forgot, and they'll hit me the night before or even in the morning, and I'll get them something.
Yeah, that makes it easier on them because they know that you can, like, I'm going to come to you, so they don't have to like make sure the unknown of like, okay, I bought it. Are they going to be available? Are they going to be home? Are you going to be like out of town or something?
Yeah, and especially we haven't traveled a ton recently, so I've been around, and again, in the long term, how viable is that? I don't know, but it's one of those things starting out that I think you just do. If you're within a city that it works, obviously
Yeah.
there's some places you just can't do that.
What's the furthest you've local delivered or like time there
If
that
it's
you've
not
had to deliver?
if it's not a bulk order, I won't go outside our town.
Yeah.
If it's a bulk order, what do you do? I mean, like,
Yeah. But if
it's an
it's like a
hour
mug
away.
or something, you're typically driving like 15 or 20 minutes maybe at the furthest to deliver it locally, or is it like 5
Yeah,
minutes?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Yeah. I don't know
Yeah.
how big Goshen is, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, right. And that's like I'm probably going to get coffee anyways, so
Yeah. Add the
do
mileage on
everything.
your deductions.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and with the other business we have, I mean, I've been able to kind of put all that in the same lane sometimes, which has been good.
Nice. Yeah, I think adding that personal connection is like that's gonna elevate you in this world that we're all digital and you don't get this connection with a lot of places that you're buying from. Like you said, Amazon
Yeah.
drop off. Like people are just like, where'd you get that? Oh, I got it off Amazon. It'll be here tomorrow. It's like there's no personal connection with that. It's just like filling that need immediately. That's like, oh, you get somebody that actually delivered it to you, and
Yeah.
it's
And
just
I've heard
makes it
other
that much
people,
nicer.
say this on the show, but like Yeah, it goes a lot further on Facebook than it does on Instagram, without a doubt. Like, Facebook is where I bring the people in locally, and Instagram is certainly farther reach.
Do, do you do any like Facebook ads? You mentioned doing the Etsy ads, but have you done Facebook ads too?
I do, yeah. So every like big restock that I have, I try to do one. And that's one of the cool things about the pottery tour, going back to that. We pay a fee to be a part, but they reimburse any sponsorship ads that you do up to a certain amount, which is really cool. It helps really get the word out in a lot of different ways. I mean, my ad settings are always going to be different than somebody else's. So that's a really cool thing that they do, and I wish more shows did that. But it's a pain to manage.
So do you mean if you individually advertise for the Michiana Pottery Tour when it's coming up, you'll say, send me a reimbursement, and you'll send them a check or a form or invoice or something, and they'll give you money for it?
Yep. Send in a screenshot to the treasurer and get a PayPal, up to a certain amount. But right. So, you're paying that fee, and it's basically on you to get it back, which a portion of it back, which I like. And like I said, obviously some people really hone in on, Facebook ad demographics, and some people do automatic, or some people do people who like my page. But then you get such a wide range of ads out there that you're really reaching a lot of different people.
Yeah, it's a great idea. So when you're doing some of those ads just in general for the restocks, do you like tailor your Facebook posts to a little bit about like who you are and like where you're located and stuff like that, so that it's got that like support small business, support local vibe to it when you're advertising?
Yeah, so I typically do 2 different ad buys, one for just in Goshen, or Goshen plus 25 miles. And that's where I'm talking about, who I am, local delivery, all that kind of stuff. I still consider myself like newish enough that I'm always like Goshen's newest, pottery studio. Have you heard about me? And then I'll do one that's geared towards people who like my page and their friends, and that route, which typically seems to be good for bringing in likes. I'm not so sure on sales per se, but
okay. It's good options to experiment with. Like those kind of things fall to the wayside for me. Like I just don't have time to do all that kind of stuff. So it's like, oh, like I don't really put much time into Facebook, but I'm sure people out there, I don't know if it's like a small town thing. I know Becca's had benefits with it, with her town, that it's, that you just get that community around you. I don't know if it's because of the appreciation for the art, or there's not many competitors in town that like make pottery like Becca. I don't know if there's many in Monroe, but like that's probably a factor.
And this is a time of year where obviously everybody, is more willing to spend because there's more likely to be a return. But, I was doing this last November, and it felt like I needed to be reminding people regularly, but I don't always want to post about it. So an ad is a way to make sure that particularly the people who like my page and their friends, they're being served my content regularly, and I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Nice. I like that. Becca, did you have any questions for Trevor? I feel like I was asking a lot of them, but
yeah, it's okay. You always ask really good questions.
Do you have any like general like cons about people to like with like on the fence about like gas firing, wood firing, electric firing? Like kind of like I feel like there's a lot of positives of like the this unknown and being surprised by what comes out, but are there like general cons that like a lot of people don't know about with that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the immediate flip side is like I watch your feed, Ryan, and I'm like, dang, I mean, it just seems like that orange comes out the exact way he wants to every time. Like as I sit there longingly looking at this picture of, your carved mugs, I'm like, dang, that color is like right on. So that's part of it. And I think I just choose to embrace that, and that's how I market it. The chances of you getting a mug from me that looks like somebody else had bought from me, basically impossible. There's going to be something in the surface, in, obviously in the making process, there's always a bit of variation, but particularly on the surface of the cups, the glaze, all that stuff, they're always going to be different. And that's one of the, big bonuses, I think, of reduction firing, is leaving a bit, to the kiln gods to do as they please. Mm-hmm. But the flip side is that unpredictability. I think that from a cost perspective, there's a lot to be said there. And from an environmental perspective, I mean, I think whether you're, someone who marches to the beat of that drum or not, like there's appreciation for your gas bill, and that cost. And that's a big part of lowering the temperatures, which I think you're going to just continue to see more of. And also because of the turnaround time, it takes a good, I mean, realistically, I should not be opening my kiln for 2 days after I fire it. I cheat that, of course, because who wants to wait 2 days? But if you're talking about a wood firing, 5-day wood firing, you're waiting a week or more to see the results. So, there's a lot of, anticipation that goes into that, and that's not for everybody. Both because you don't want to wait, but also because you don't have time to wait. If you're in if you have another job or whatever it may be, maybe you only have a weekend to get stuff around. So waiting that extended period of time just doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, it's not a set it and forget it. Right. It's a nurturing. It's one of those, you can't just leave the kiln while it's firing. You have to be there.
And I mean, last year I was working 6 days a week, and on my day off I was sitting by the kiln for 10 hours. Which was a long, that's tough way to spend a weekend when you want to be with your family and all that stuff, but it was what I had to do at the time. And now I have more space, to be able to do those things, but I get it, for a lot of people who can't do this full time, or, even 3/4 time or whatever it may be, that level of commitment from a time perspective just doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
Is it challenging to, I know you're priced currently at like 20-25 and like at the lower end of atmospheric firing kind of comparables, but do you feel like is it hard to explain the process to buyers, or is it an educated buyer that understands that about the process already? Or how does that work with like customer side of it?
So in terms of being at shows, I mean, I've said I don't want to make Goshen to seem like it's the best place in the world, but from a pottery perspective, we're really lucky that people have been educated. And that's the work that has been done for, 40 years before me. So that, people, for better or worse, sometimes, are pretty certain they know what's going on. So they appreciate the difference and they can detect that. I think online it's more difficult, and that's where the Instagram stories are super helpful and all of that kind of stuff. But even then, translating that into a sale that someone understands, I've had people who have purchased from Etsy, and no matter how many pictures I take, the surface that they have in their hand is different than what they anticipated. That's always going to be a hard part of it.
It's not always a glossy finish, and it's not always consistent all the way through. It's like...
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So it performs really well in person, I think. I have a couple glazes that just, they don't look like often what else you see at a show. And that really goes a long way. And it sparks a conversation. It's really difficult when someone walks up to be like, hey, these are soda fired pots and here's why it's different. But if they can pick it up first, it typically leads to a conversation or a question. And then, I've kind of got that rehearsed in my head about what you say and all that.
Yeah. What kind of questions do you get? Is it like, oh, this is covered all the way, all on the bottom too, or like?
Yeah. So one of the big things is that in trying to get these like super runny glazed surfaces, when the pots come out of the kiln, they look like shit on the bottom. So then I've got to grind them and all of that stuff, and it's just impossible to get rid of all of those, remnants on the bottom. They're smooth. They're not going to crack, scratch a table per se, but they're going to look different than what comes out of an electric kiln. So that's one of the main places of conversation that comes up. People will flip it over and there will be, a glazed puddle there on the bottom, but it's smooth. And you're like, how is that possible? How's there glaze on the bottom? That kind of thing, which sparks a conversation. But certainly you just get a lot of like, this looks different, which, of course you never know, like, different good. You're like trying to detect the tone in their voice, but it usually gives me an opportunity to say, hey, thanks for noticing, here's why it's different.
And then when you go ahead, Becca.
Oh, I was just thinking about it today and how my favorite thing it shows is when people compliment you, but they don't actually know what they're talking about. So actually they're not complimenting you. That's my favorite thing. Like one time this lady came up to me and she's like, you know what? I just love these bowls. And my favorite part is when it just has this little bump in the middle on the bottom. And I was like, yeah, that's great. Cool.
Thank you.
Or like when they pick it up and they're like, wow, this is so great. It's so heavy. You're like, ugh.
Like, this is too light. This is so light.
Yeah. I mean, getting used to the reactions has been, that's just something I wasn't prepared for and all that, but I think I've gotten a little bit better at. But again, that's often why my wife is there.
Yeah, I would suppose there's so in-depth conversation that can happen with the atmospheric pots that it's like, how deep do I go here? Like, do I even mention the word soda? Do I say atmospheric? Do I say like this is I fire with gas, not electricity? Like, is that enough? Or,
It's typically, I fire with natural gas and we are spraying salt into the kiln. And I typically have, a couple electric pieces there, a couple just straight reduction pieces. So then I can pick them up and be like, hey, this is the difference. This is the difference between, one of my favorite tricks is if I can at least have the same glaze in 3 different kilns on the table, then like you can really see this is the breadth of where you can go, with these different types of firings. And people appreciate it if you'll stop and talk to them. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
It's not always fun.
I think that's a good selling point too. Like, if you show that there's 3 different ones, it's like, hey, if you like something, you better get it, because there's no guarantee that anything is gonna look the same.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And people love that everyone is different. I mean, that's one of the things that, again, going back to the business model of throwing the same form, but firing the way that I do, it takes, some of that. I don't feel the pressure to make unique forms as much because my unique work comes, on the back end.
Yeah. What kind of forms do you typically specialize in?
I mean, I have a mug form that I'm very comfortable with. I have kind of like a ramen bowl type of, that I really like with a narrower foot. I have one of those old Forge tools, that he makes. I'm sure you've seen those where it makes the rounded foot. Again, simplifying the process of that. And then I just got, excuse me, I don't know if you know GR Forms that's up in Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
So I just got one of their triangle plate sets. I've been loving, playing with that, which has been another good learning experience. I mean, I just don't really ever get to the slab roller. So that's been cool. I've really enjoyed that. And that set came with 6 different sizes, I think. So again, it's like for mystery boxes, like I'll crank out those little triangles that are 3 inches on a side or 4 inches on a side, and you can sell those for anything. They're great for ketchup. They're great for jewelry. They're,
Yeah.
put your tea bag on them, after you've dunked it a couple times. Like, those are easy mystery box fillers or $10 things. I try to always have a kids table at a show. And I put a sign up, it's for kids only, which again is a great way to get adults in and to get rid of some product.
Nice.
Yeah. What do you
I
put
can
on your
imagine.
kids' table? Yeah, what's on the kids' table?
So seconds. I mean, typically, small plates. Last year I made a lot of gnome houses at Christmas, what I called gnome houses. We put a little candle in. Those kind of things. Yeah. Certainly nothing I want more money for, but I do think there's a good balance in, like I said, it brings the adults in.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
I used to just hand kids kinetic sand. Here. You want some kinetic sand? Here you go.
There was a jeweler next to me at one show this summer who was handing out sea glass for free. It's just like, saw kids bring their parents back. How hard is it to pick up some sea glass when you're at the beach?
Yeah. Plus it's like a fun task to find some sea glass. Yeah. So the you mentioned restaurant orders earlier. Are you firing, and you mentioned plates, are plates the things that you're selling to them?
Typically, yeah. Either traditional plates, or I've done a lot of, more high-sided bowls, but that are wide. So like one of the restaurants that I've done a lot of work with, they do a lot of chicken and waffles. And like,
that's so good.
How do you display chicken and waffles? Like, what's the correct way? So what they're doing with I made oval, high walled bowls, which obviously those were a pain in the ass to make, because you're joining a thrown piece to a slab piece. But what they're doing then is they've got the chicken on one end and they've got all of the waffles stacked up, in a row. And then they, put the stuff on top, and those were designed especially for that, which is pretty cool. And that's been the thing that customers have asked the most about at the restaurant is who made this.
Nice. Is that hard to get? How are those fired, I guess, first?
Yeah, so I'll put those through either kiln, and it really just depends on kind of my schedule. So like if I want to I won't typically put any production stuff or orders through the soda kiln unless that's specifically asked for. Because that's just a recipe for.
That's what I was getting at. I was gonna say, is that inconsistency in the fluctuation like a problem? Because I would guess there is more risk for like slumping and warping and
exactly
heavy sanding and stuff.
And doing the production orders in the electric kiln exactly takes a lot of the work out in the end. So unless they're asking for it specifically, I generally tend to skew away from that. And that's where I have, large batch glazes that I can, bust through stuff pretty quick, because oftentimes they want it fast and they want it for the lowest price you can. So again, I'm not going to fire it in the soda kiln unless you're willing to pay the surcharge.
Right. You almost, is it even like financially possible to like wholesale soda stuff? Like, it doesn't make sense that would even like make work,
Yeah, so I mean, I do, but it's very much upfront. Like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a number of handmade mugs that look the same, or are shoppers going to come in and understand what you're getting? And those are almost always in retail stores, brick and mortar. To wholesale to someone who's selling then online, that's almost impossible with soda stuff, unless they're just so explicit about what it is.
Yeah. And I would imagine it's hard. Like, do you almost have, is it hard to not like price things differently based on the results of like how good it looks versus
Correct.
like the underwhelming nature of like this didn't get as much action or something? So it's
Right.
like,
And that's what, again, early on here, I've just made the choice to price everything the same. And sometimes that really sucks when you're packaging something up. You're like, man, I wish I would have charged more for that. But again, being of the mindset right now of I need to be making as much as I can to build my skill. So it does me a disservice to get twice as much a year later.
I love that. I love that you have that like foresight. And I think that it also gives a good, I'm not going to say excuse, but a good like reason to why you're doing something a certain way. Like, I love that you're just like, I want the experience and I want the repetition. And that's why this is my price. And I think that, but with knowing that you'll eventually have to raise your price once that skill finally like matures, I think that that's fabulous. Like, not very many people are comfortable with that, you know, but I think you're doing yourself a service by doing that. Yeah.
Well, thanks for saying that. And I make a bet on myself that they're going to like it. And if they're a return customer, they're going to be willing to pay $5 more next year and maybe more, in the future.
Yeah.
I've also given away a lot of mugs, not going to lie. But it's been good for business.
Who do you give them away to? Do you choose like certain things you follow, or like, do you give them to shops or somebody that it's like a local coffee shop and you give it to one of them, or?
Yeah, either, people who seem like they're going to be potential clients. I've done it that way. Last Christmas, I did 2 marketing things that they were good from they weren't good from a business perspective, but other than hopefully return later. But when I first I made mugs and I'm going to sell them, I did a fundraiser for, there was a place in town that was doing free COVID tests last October. And they were one of the only places that was doing it for free. So I said, if you buy a mug, the profit goes to them.
Yeah.
And I sold a bunch of mugs. And, that was the first time that a lot of people saw me. Again, didn't make any money. I'm sure I lost money from it. But, it got my Etsy sales up very quickly. So, that has some benefits of having some numbers on there, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing was, and I'll do this again this year, every Saturday in December, I hide a mug downtown and put it on my Instagram story. And the coffee shop in town provides a bag of coffee along with it, and they put it on their Instagram feed. And they have a lot more followers than I do. So every Saturday, at 10 a.m., it's on both of our feeds, and it's somewhere downtown. My wife wraps it with, a little Santa hanging off the side and all that. And, that's been really good, it seems like. And I think I'll continue to do that again.
Nice. Needs to be. Do you have like a clever name for it?
I don't. No, that's not my strength.
I was trying to think of like Saturdays with Trevor, like Saturdays with something like.
Yeah. And we've got like this whole like Good of Goshen thing going on, like where people, do stuff to help each other. It's kind of a social media tag that's very popular. So that gets me in that, cycle. A lot of people follow that.
Nice.
So I try to say that, I'm not like totally, utilizing that tag for my business purposes. I am giving away a mug and coffee.
Yeah. That's a good idea. We did the art drop thing when we were traveling for our road trip, and that was pretty fun.
Nice.
That's a good way to also get rid of some pots too that are like been hanging around. It's like, I don't mind getting rid of this, but I mean, somebody's gonna benefit and somebody's gonna like it and stuff. So.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't probably say this on a mainstream, consumer focused podcast, but like I know the potters out there like get it. Sometimes you have stuff that you just need to move, and it's a way to market.
I when I left when I left Monroe, I hid like 6 mugs around Monroe. And then, and like most of my friends like went and found them or whatever. But when I was back visiting, I was like, I hid one so good. And I was like, I wonder if it's still there. And it was under a bench in the bushes. And I like reached in there and it was still there.
Did you
Nice.
take it,
like
or did you
6 months
put it somewhere
later.
else?
I think I gave it to somebody that I saw.
Yeah.
You could have a good hashtag with that, Becca. You could have like mugs of Monroe or something like that. Like,
Right. Seems like it needs to be an alliteration, and
it's got to be something good with Goshen. Like,
right.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know.
Listeners, send me
you'll
a
have to
message.
think about that. Yeah, or Michiana or something with M, like mugs of Michiana or.
Now I got you on the
Ah.
Michiana train, Ryan. We got to get you up here, both of you up here for a visit.
Yeah. And I was thinking about the pricing thing. Like, I know Kurt does like Tracy's picks. Like, could you do like Bree's picks?
Right.
Or your whatever your daughter's name is, or your child's name. Is your daughter?
How fun would it be for your kid to choose a couple mugs? How cute.
Yeah, then that would allow me to have a lot of write-offs from all the stuff that she breaks. In the choosing process.
There you go. Can't resist the kids and stuff.
Right. I'm trying to not like completely put her on social media, but also her posts do really well.
Josh is just given into exploitation of children. So, like, he's like, my kids are cute. It's fine.
Yep.
We're using them.
He actually talked about that at the conference. He did. It's like one of his speaking points.
Yes, utilize the kids when you can. Okay, let's see. I don't know that we had any other gas fire. I feel like we answered all the question that the one person asked. They were asking about going in depth about the kiln types, electric, gas, wood, fire, pros, cons. I think we answered all of those. And I didn't actually realize that you produced a lot of like electric stuff as well. And you said the electric kilns, and I was like, you're bisque firing in a gas kiln? That's got to be risky. But, do you bisque in the electric too, or is it just the size of it just doesn't work? Or
I do. My large electric kiln is currently not functioning, and getting an electrician right now. I know, Ryan, did you guys do yours yourself?
My father does outdoor electrical work, so he's got all the skills. He was like,
Very nice.
This work that we did, it was like an entire day. He was like, that would have been like $1,000 job.
Right. Yeah, getting a professional in right now is very difficult. So I'm on a waiting list to get my large kiln repaired. But yeah, I mean, it is risky-ish. I mean, I have I'll do like 4 cones in that firing. So, as long as I'm in range.
Actually, I guess it's probably less risky because like the gas is not just going to go out, right?
No, typically not. I mean, I have safety measures in case something were to go wrong, it will kick off. But
I mean, I guess with like a kiln, I mean, you've got the relay, you got the elements, you got the the thermocouple. Like,
right.
There might actually be more risk with the electric kiln now that I think about it.
And the other thing is that if I'm then firing it in a reduction kiln finally anyways, it's getting the same treatment. So I don't know what. Obviously you cross pollinate when you do electric bisque and fire in a reduction kiln. It would be interesting to know the effect the other way around if you're bisquing in a reduction kiln, firing in an electric kiln. I've not done that.
I wonder if there's any like because is it hot enough that things that are in the kiln can still intermingle, and like are there things on the walls that are coated on the walls that could come out into the atmosphere into your bisque pots?
So if you were, I would never bisque in my soda kiln, but like even if I were to do a cone tin glaze firing in my soda kiln and not use soda, there's so much on the walls that at temperature it expels itself into the kiln. So you still have to wad all of those pots because they will stick, which sucks. So I've not gone that route. I know that there are people that do. I mean, once you've fired a soda kiln for years, there's so much buildup in there, you'll get that effect. without spraying.
It's pretty sweet. Makes me want to do a firing now. I'll have to figure that out.
We just got to get. What do you typically find too, Ryan?
What am I firing? I'm firing cone 6 electric.
Okay. So we got to get you some cone 10 clay and then.
Yeah.
Get you up
I
there.
used to use when I left NKU, the college I went to here, they had some cone 6 to 10 clay, so they would, or maybe it was 8 to 10 or something. I don't know. You would do electric firings to cone 6, or you would do gas firings to cone 10.
Sure.
And they would do reductions, so like had the flexibility of the clays, and then they would even gas fire it or wood fire it. I think maybe it could even withstand higher than cone 10, but it was pretty flexible and a little bit gritty. So yeah, having the right clay is good, because the clay has a lot to do with like how good the results are going to look.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. You use special clay, geared towards soda firing if you're, going in without any glaze on it or anything like that. But if you're willing to put glaze on it, as long as it's rated for the temperature, you're in good shape.
Yeah. Chinos were always the go-to. I like the peach to red chinos and like the Malcolm Davis chino. That's like my favorite.
No doubt.
It's a go-to.
Yeah, next time you're buying clay, get a box.
So what kind of clay, or who's a supplier of clay that's a good option for a lot of soda firing or what you're doing?
So I think most people would say, using a red body or, something that is formulated for soda firing. Continental clay has a great soda mix. Standard has a wood firing mix, but it works great in soda.
Is that just how it's named? It's just named like soda mix, or like?
Yep. Continentals it's cone 10 soda clay or something. And then Standards is Troy's wood fire clay, something like that. Those are both, a little more formulated for atmospheric, trying to draw out, stuff out of the body. But there are a lot of people who fire porcelain, in soda, because that surface is so smooth, then you're really letting anything else you apply to it, shine, as opposed to using something that's heavy in iron or, heavy in grit or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I'd imagine that has to be pretty, I don't know, the warping and the like misshapenness of porcelain is so sensitive that like slumping is probably a big thing with the porcelain, and it's very finicky, but I could see if it absorbs the right colors and the ashes and stuff that it like really produces a beautiful effect.
Yeah. I forget again, this is such an Instagram problem. Like, I don't remember his name, but Craft Rider is the guy on Instagram. His first name's Ian, I think, but he fires a lot of porcelain and soda, and boy, his work is lovely.
Craft Rider, Rider?
Yeah.
Okay, Ian. Yeah, I found it. Oh.
And he's doing a lot of slip work, but he is then applying the slip and then decorating it with his finger, which is really cool.
Oh, yeah. The like oranges and blues and.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I just love that, like, the orange peel effect of the firings that it produces. It's like so nice. The oranges always get me too.
Yeah, no doubt.
Love the oranges or that like the like matte long, like the grays and black effects of the. I guess that's like, is that the carbon parts of it, the grays and blacks? Yeah.
Yep. When you're putting it into reduction, you're trying to get that carbon trapping, to stay with the piece.
Nice. All right, Becca, any last questions for Trevor before we sign off? I know you're trying to make sure you have battery there.
I had to plug my computer into the wall, and so I'm sitting on the floor now. No, I mean, I've literally just been listening, because I feel like I've learned so much.
Should you and I go participate in like should we do one of these together and it'll be one of your first firings?
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna have to come up and stay with you, or stay somewhere and be.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet we could get Josh to come along too.
Right. Josh is going to be my continental clay source. We're going to split orders, I guess.
Oh,
Nice. He does a lot of that.
Yeah.
I need to figure out some clay, I guess, and then make some pots. Are there I guess before we sign off, are there any general things that you have to like be aware of when you're producing pots for that kind of firing? Like, I'm guessing you have to make sure that they're durable enough, like they're not too thin. So like Becca's super thin pots might not be as conducive because of the atmosphere, or
Yeah, but and then to me that's all part of the aesthetic. Like if it's a taller cup that gets a little deformed, but it has a one of a kind surface and it's still usable, like that's all part of the story to me.
Yeah.
You know, particularly with plates. I mean, it's really a struggle. You've got to apply a lot of wadding, you know, across the whole surface to make sure you don't get slumps. But generally speaking, you know, stuff hangs in there. Of course, we can all make our pots thinner, or at least I can always make mine lighter. So, you know, like that's one of the benefits of starting out is like some pieces are a little heavier, but they, you know, hang in there.
yeah. Nice.
For sure.
All right. So Becca and I'll figure out. I'm excited about doing something like that. I haven't done it in a while. I always kind of put it in the back of my mind that I'm like, oh, I'll sign up for a classic Queen City Clay and like do it in there because they built a wood kiln or whatever, and it's like, oh, I'll do it, but I like never do it because it never becomes priority enough to dedicate like weeks to do this.
Right.
Yeah,
and I mean with the size of my kiln, it's like we can easily divvy it up and it's not, you know, too much work. And we got a bunch of great food up here, so come eat, come drink.
Hooray! Food.
Oh yeah, I feel like you kind of got the know in on what's some good Michiana edible stuff.
Yeah, we can take care of you.
All right. Cool. Well, thanks Trevor for chatting with us. What is all your contact info for those that want to find you out there?
Trevor Clayworks on Instagram, trevorclayworks.com. Find all the links to Etsy, my blog, all that kind of stuff on there. Yeah, same on Facebook, Trevor Clayworks. That was part of the naming. Kept it all the same.
There you go. Branding on point. All right. Thanks, Trevor. We'll sign off here and then we'll say goodbye. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.
Yo, higgity yo. It's Becca here. Hey, just so you know, thank you for listening. And also, we have... What do we have again? A Patreon. We have a Patreon that you should go, and if you want to donate to, you could donate to it. If you don't, that's cool too. But just Google Wheel Talk Podcast Patreon. Don't do the other one, because there is a Wheel Talk on Patreon, but it's not us. So make sure you get the right one. It's in the show notes. And also, leave us a review because they're fun to read. Okay, bye!